Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the Annie Harris Football Channel. And as you can see, today we'll be previewing Bristol City's trip to Fratton Park this upcoming weekend. And along me, I've got a very special guest, and it is none other than Tom, if I can speak, from 4-0, 4, I can't speak, 4-0 written all over it. Tom, first of all, how are you doing, mate? And yeah, just how are you doing?
Oh, very well, mate. Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be chatting. Couple of sleeps to go, I suppose, until the weekend for us and a big game down at Fratton Park, which I'm very much looking forward to. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Are
A
you
bit of
coming
a
down? Are you making the trip?
Unfortunately not. You know something? I was planning on making the trip, and then I came out of work, and then I had a look, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a ticket." Went out, came back uh, uh, came back from school, and then I was like, "Ah, that tickets are sold out." So it was not the
Oh,
most
no.
ideal timing.
How many did we give you? It's about 2,000, I would have thought.
About that, yeah.
Mm.
So it's
It's
quite
not very
quite
far, is it? So I'd imagine they'd
no,
sell out quite
no.
quickly. And it's not a trip
That and
you've done for quite a while, is it? In the league, at least. So, yeah,
no.
okay.
That and Plymouth are quite popular with the City fans,
Yeah, I can
which
imagine.
is yeah, quite normal. Anyway, let's talk Pompey. Um, how have you felt so far about the season on the whole, on the overview? How do you feel?
The headline is we're bottom. There's no getting away from that. And I said to friends of mine over the last couple of weeks, you might have seen in my videos, like the table is painting a pretty clear picture of where we are right now. And by the first weekend of December, the table isn't lying, is it? If you're bottom, you're bottom, and if you're top, you're top. Um, we're feeling I'm feeling okay at the moment. With last couple of weeks, we've got back to competing. There was a period where we weren't competing, and I felt like we were very much not in games and not picking up any points for a period of time, or picking up very few points. Now we're back competing. We have a pretty much fully fit squad to pick from. We have Colby Bishop back probably 6 weeks earlier than anyone was really anticipating, which has been a real boost for the players, the club, the fans, everybody associated with Portsmouth Football Club. Has been a real boost. We have won our first league game at Fratton Park about a month ago, which was incidentally our last league game at Fratton Park, which means we're on a little bit of a high, a little bit of a crest of a wave, and we're enjoying things at the moment in terms of being at home because we've got, you know, home form is really important for us given we're at the bottom, we're fighting to stay in this division. You know, if you can get your home form right and then pick up the occasional point away from home, you're probably going to be all right in terms of survival. Right now, we're not doing that. So home form is something that we're really looking to put right, and the pressing game's a big step towards doing that. In terms of away from home, we've not been fantastic. Bizarrely, we've lost 6-1. We've lost 2-0, but that was probably away at Cardiff, that one, and that was a really horror show of a night. Yet our away form is not too bad when you compare it with our home form. So we've had some really bad away days, yet away form's not horrendous, or away tally/return is not horrendous. So we're not where we want to be, Annie, and we are getting there, competing again, but there's still a lot to do and a lot to come from this Pompey side.
You mentioned there about the home form, and I think that's quite crucial for a lot of teams down near the bottom, isn't it? I
Mhm.
mean, I think the trend this season is a lot of teams throughout the division are skew a lot better at home than they do away from home.
Yep.
In terms of kind of this sort of game for Pompey, maybe you're looking at a side in Bristol City who probably middle of the packish, kind of similar to Preston in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
You're kind of typical championship teams at
Yep.
Fratton Park. Are these the sort of games, apart from obviously the obvious ones at home? With teams down near the bottom like a QPR or um, Oxford or Plymouth or whatever. Are these the
Hmm.
sort of games you'd be looking at and going, right, if we can really get at them and maybe get 3 points, that'd be a massive boost in terms of the survival push?
Yeah, massively. This is 10th successive championship season for Bristol City, if I'm not mistaken. You're quite right. It's the, and with meaning no disrespect whatsoever, it's the archetypal establishment club at this level, isn't it? And this is this is a measure for us this weekend, Danny. This is a bit of a yard marker. This is kind of, we're going to get what your sort of, I'm not going to use the word average, but your middle of the road as you're going sort of championship team. If you want the definition of that, you want your Bristol City or your Preston. I know Preston are probably having a little bit of a less favourable season so far this year than they would have wanted. I know that you guys want more. I know that Liam Manning wants more. And I know that you are a team that is talented and capable enough in order to achieve more. I actually see Bristol City this season as looking much more towards the playoffs than they will be towards mid-table. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think one of them is the fact that the championship is not fantastic. There are probably 4 or 5 teams that you could say are really top level championship, and then there's a little bit of room for other sides that aren't maybe that good. You look at some of the teams that we've played this season and some of the games that have come back to competing. Sheffield United at Fratton Park was a 0-0 draw that we could have easily snatched at the last minute through Jacob Farrell. And you think, well, they're high flying at the top of the league. That's not really your championship. That's your sort of your bottom end Premier League sort of side. So, and we come back to the middle of the road championship team, and you mentioned Preston. Well, we absolutely turned Preston over at our place a couple of weeks ago. They came here, and first half in particular, they offered absolutely nothing. They created nothing and were just devoid of anything. And we looked really good against them. I don't think we'll get the same on Saturday. From our point of view, that's unfortunate. But from your point of view, I think that's probably part of the game plan that you'll look to impose on us. Yeah, I think it's certainly something that we'll want to target points from. We want to target points from any game at home in the Championship at Fratton Park. That's just sort of absolute bread and butter for us. There'll be some games whereby you might have seen this season, Sunderland have come down to Fratton Park and did a number on us. West Brom came down to Fratton Park, did a number on us. There's a couple of other examples as well, which I won't go into too much. I see it being either you walk away with it quite easily or it's quite a tight game. I don't think we're going to win it by very much. I think the very best we can hope for is to win it by a goal. That would be best case scenario for us. I think a draw is likely in terms of an outcome. I don't think that's enough for us. I'm expecting you guys to probably say you take a point away from home in the Championship, because I think you should never turn your nose up against it, although we are bottom of the league. So yeah, I think it'll be a real tough ask for us to get anything from Saturday. I think it'd be a great result if we do get anything. But then I remind myself that a point's probably not enough. It'd be a great result if we win. Be a point you take, perhaps. But again, I come back to it. We need to get back on that home form. Like at the minute, it just is. And as you say, if you're a team that's down there, you have to sort your home form out. And Saturday's an opportunity to do just that.
Well, your home form, obviously that first win against Preston you mentioned, your general form recently, I know it's been a bit of a weird kind of block with the couple of fixtures being cancelled with the Blackburn and the Millwall games. So it's
Yeah.
kind of felt like you've had a nice little run and then a break and then another decent little run. So ultimately it's 7 points in 4 games, which is pretty decent. It's pretty decent form. So talk to me about your form recently, and do you think that's a bit of a trend up, or is it just a bit of an anomaly? And are you getting better from the start of the season?
We're getting better. Yeah, we are getting better. As you say, it has been a little bit stop-start. We obviously had a couple of postponements in there, to really bizarrely 2 back-to-back postponements for completely independent reasons that I don't think we'll ever see anything like that ever again. Certainly a very embarrassing night when we're going to welcome Millwall down to Fratton Park for the night that never was, sorry. Luckily, it will be middle of the afternoon for us on Saturday, so we might not need any lights. Hopefully they've got whatever that was sorted by the time Saturday comes around. I'm absolutely sure they will have done. Yeah, we're improving. It's not a very it's quite a low bar to have been set, really, isn't it? Like the only way is up when you're bottom of the league, quite frankly. So yes, we are improving. Form wise, I think you're right. 7 points. It's difficult to tell you, not just because of the stop start, but also in there you've got international break too. So we haven't actually had, and we are about to hit a 3-game week. We had a couple of 2-game weeks before that, but then we had a load of postponements. Well, we had 2 postponements, and we haven't really got into a rhythm. And I feel like I can't really give you a proper answer to a question about form, you're well within your rights to ask it. There isn't an awful lot to look back on. If I tell you what I could do, if we come back here and do a preview for the game at your place, I'd probably be able to tell you a little bit more about form between now and then. It's got a really busy schedule. What I would say is players are getting a lot better. So Matt Ritchie has become the player that we all wanted him to be. Callum Lang has this bite and this industry about him. He's a real. I'd probably pick him out as the number one player to watch. Is Pompey's number 49, Callum Lang. Josh Murphy, 3 goals, 3 assists now in a Pompey shirt. So he's started finding his shooting boots. Terry Devlin's filling in at right back. He's a little Irish terrier of ours that he's Northern Irish terrier of ours, sorry, that he absolutely just is the most unlikely person to have filled in at right back, I would say, although he's incredibly dependable and very sort of adaptable. But he came to Pompey as a midfielder and he's filling in at right back. But you wouldn't have thought that. When you see him on Saturday, he's likely to start right back, although Zach Swanson's back available. You won't think anything other than him being a right back because he just looks so naturally suited to it, even though that's not his number one position or wasn't his number one position. If he's performing as well at right back, it might as well be his number one position. So the form is difficult, but players are improving. Results have been better. I come back to it. We have started competing again. We went through a period where we weren't competing. Now I feel like we are, and I very much hope we do compete on Saturday.
And do you feel like, obviously the step up to the Championship from League One is incredibly tough for anyone, even the champions. Do you feel like Pompey are getting to a stage where you are, I don't know, matching everyone about for quality? Maybe not necessarily quality, but in terms of a performance and especially at Fratton Park, because that's incredibly important for you guys. Is that happening, or is that just that little bit further away?
We're getting there in terms of performances. We're not quite churning out 90-minute back-to-back performances at the moment. I think Swansea game at the weekend's a really good example. We had a really good first 45 minutes whereby, I saying to people on the day and in sort of podcasts I've been on this week that what is rule number one of being 2-0 up away from home with a couple of minutes to go before half time is that you go in 2-0 up. You don't do anything silly in injury time in the first half. And basically that's what we did. The game is completely different 2-1 away from home than it would be if we were 2-0 and could have been 3-0 up for a Colby Bishop chance right at the end of the first half. Swansea then come out and get the goal in the second half, and all of a sudden it turns into, oh my word, it'd be absolutely brilliant if we get away with a point, let alone the win that we had a comfortable 2-goal cushion for in the first half at one point. So I think putting together a 90-minute performance is basically separating us from being with the rest in terms of the performance levels. I think that you look at the championship table at the bottom, and I know you guys are nowhere near this, but wins are in very short supply. Like, not a lot of teams win many games at the bottom of the championship. You sort of win a game and then you have a run where you draw a couple, lose a couple, and then you're back to your win again for quite a lot of teams. Like, the form is very hard to come by at the bottom end of the championship. In terms of your question about champions and coming up, and I think you maybe hinted at maybe underestimating the championship a little bit in terms of the quality that we're going to come up against. Cynics and critics at Pompey would say that there's been a bit of a naivety in terms of what we were expecting and what we went out and bought in the summer transfer window. Were we as a squad quite prepared for the challenges that we were going to face? I would argue there's a talented squad there. I think we'll see a talented team when you play us on Saturday. I've highlighted a couple of players earlier on that I think are really good players and are top professionals. Matt Ritchie's had an illustrious Premier League career. You guys know all about Marlon Pack, of course, who has been around the block and is our club captain and has been for many years now. And he's a top professional. And then we have a few other sort of players that, haven't had the most championship experience, but are really starting to perform a little bit, which is great. So we have a fantastic goalkeeper who's come over from Austria, a guy called Nicholas Schmid, who I don't know if you've seen any of the saves that he made on Saturday. But yeah, there's a triple save in there that the flag goes up for offside, but he still makes the triple save. So he was the reason why we stayed in that game on Saturday, plain and simply. So expect a lot from him this coming weekend. So yeah, in answer to your question, we're getting there, not quite there yet, as I said earlier. And yeah, I think a 90-minute performance is the next step for Pompey right now. Put in something like the Preston win, really. Back that up, put a 90-minute performance in that we can be proud of.
I'm gonna be honest, 90-minute performances in the Championship, it's just really difficult. Like
Yeah, of course
even
it is.
since even since like we've been kind of on the fringes of the playoffs a couple of times, and even then, don't think we ever played well for more than 60, 70 minutes of a game. It's just incredibly difficult to do. And even in
Mhm.
the games we've won this season, it's just really just yeah, it's an unforgiving league, but I'm sure well, you found that out so far this season in the
The
most
hard
brutal
way we
way.
found that out. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in the most brutal way. You mentioned Nicholas Schmidt, and I was going to talk about that and kind of link it to the Swansea game actually. Obviously found yourselves 2-0 up, and then 2-1 at half time, and obviously, especially with the way Swansea play, that possession-based system, that incredibly, they'll put you on the back foot. You'll feel like you won't be able to get out. Um, how much of well, ultimately, a point away at Swansea is not the worst result in the world. They'll probably be kind of top half this season in isolation. How much of that was purely down to Nicholas Schmid, and how much of that was maybe a good kind of bit of a clinical attacking display?
Yeah, I came away, well, we came away as sort of the group that I go to the football with, feeling sort of conflicted and indifferent. There was a part of me that was sort of, oh my word, if it weren't for Nicholas Schmid, as you quite rightly say, that could have been quite an embarrassing scoreline and could have been Stoke all over again. Um, Incidentally, Nicholas Schmid wasn't in goal for that particular game. And he hadn't actually broken into the starting 11 yet at that point. The flip side of that was, and from my point of view, we had a massive Sadie chance at the end that you might have seen that was right in front of us in the away end. Um, Basically, one of those where it's harder to miss than it is to score. And he basically puts it in the one place where he could have put it that wasn't in the back of the net. And I think he sort of maybe thinks the keeper's a little bit closer to him. He's having a challenge him from behind. I'm not saying it's a penalty by any stretch, but it's just a player that's coming in late to try and win the ball. And then he's got the keeper in front of him and he's, you know, put off slightly and tries to get it as far away from the keeper as possible, but also in the goal. It's one of those where at that moment in time, 2-2, if you go nick it 3-2 away from home, it's the absolute great train robbery that anyone's ever seen. You completely run away with it and you don't deserve it whatsoever. I don't think we would have deserved to win on Saturday had we won. And I think if Swansea had nicked one, I think they would have been fully deserving of the win. It was one of those games. We did get the point. It's a shame because Pompey are finding really bad ways to drop points. I think it's 14 points we've dropped from losing positions so far this season, which is really, really poor. And I think Saturday is a really good example of that. Whereby you get your nose in front, 2 goals as we've mentioned, and yes, you're going to an unforgiving place in Swansea. And you're quite right; they will probably be top end of the top, sorry, bottom end of the top half in the Championship this season, if not slightly higher. Um, they've got a coach who is sort of quite quirky, isn't he? He's got quite a bit about him. He's one of those where he's the kind of guy that you'd get in there and deliver a halftime team talk that would come out and you change the game, and that's exactly what they did. Albeit got that one back in the first half. Um, that's maybe something that Pompey lack, that ability. Bizarrely, it was an absolute cornerstone of our success in League One. But that ability, you're talking about the step up to the Championship, the ability to turn a game around from a tight position and adapt. I suppose the in-game adaptability in terms of just tweaking a few things. Sometimes that happens at half time. Sometimes it doesn't from our point of view. Sometimes a team will come out and play a slightly different way to the way that we've prepared for them all week. And Messina will get the boys in at half time and sort of tweak a few things. Expect a sort of roughly 20-minute, someone goes down with an injury and we all have a little bit of a team talk and a chat. That's something that you can expect from Pompey side. I think that's kind of what we tend to do. I think a lot of teams do it. I know it's not great, but it happens. Um, yeah, I've gone off a little bit of a tangent there from Swansea, but what I'm trying to say is we drop points a lot. And if we go 2-0 up against you in the unlikely event that that happens, I wouldn't be considering the game gone from your point of view, because look at what Swansea have done this season. Look at what a number of other teams have done to contribute towards Pompey dropping 14 points from winning positions already. So I think at Fratton Park, it's probably a little bit different there, because if we go 2-0 up, we could probably take care of that in terms of atmosphere as well. And if we can, keep playing football on our terms, I think that would be fantastic. Um, but yeah, there's certainly a game in there, no matter what the scoreline is, unless it's something ludicrous from a Pompey point of view, because we do have that naivety at times, not all the time, and inability to be able to be adaptable in the moment, which I think is a quality that you need in the Championship.
How important is Fratton Park to you guys, do you reckon? Because there are a couple of teams, well, all teams who've come up from League One, Derby and Oxford as well, who've all been, both have been incredibly strong at home, and
Yeah,
uh, hasn't quite reflected the same way for you guys. A
no.
couple of performances where you've kind of gone can really make use of that atmosphere at Fratton Park, and um, compared to the other teams down near the bottom, how just how important is it for you to get that home form moving? Because it could really be a massive weapon for you.
You look at what Plymouth did in the Championship last season and basically had, and they're doing it now really, and just literally have home park as an absolute pillar of your Championship survival. And I said to you earlier on, if you can get your home form sorted out and pick up the odd point away from home and the odd win, fantastic. You're probably going to be safe in the Championship. We haven't quite done that yet. I mentioned to you that Preston was our first win at Fratton Park, and that was November, which is a little bit of a concern. Albeit we haven't played an awful lot of football the last couple of weeks, it's still a concern of mine that we're start of December and still waiting for our second home win. And we've, only picked up a win away from home so far this season as well. But to come back to your point on the home form, I think it's absolutely fundamental. It's our USP, Fratton Park. There's not really anywhere like it. I really like Ashton Gate. I went there a couple of seasons ago when we had a pre-season game there. It literally recently been redone when we went there. They just finished off whatever part that we were in. But I think Fratton Park as an old school traditional ground with a slightly more modern feel to it these days, given the improvements that the ownership have made to it recently. There really is, when it's rocking, there's nowhere quite like it. I don't think in football in the Championship, you've obviously got your massive stadium of lights and your Ellen Roads, but in terms of as tight and compact as the pitch and as raucous as that atmosphere can be, we have to use that to our advantage. We haven't quite done so on the scale that we all would have liked. You're quite right to mention the teams that came up with us from League One last season and how they've actually, snapped into it and got their home form right from the very start. Oxford only got 3 stands and their home form's better than us. So, you're looking at that and thinking, how on earth's that happening? But no, they're very good side, Oxford. And now Jack will kill me if I come on here and absolutely slate them. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, and I think if we were to put a little bit of a run together whereby our home form improved, I think that would really give us a bit of a boost and a bit of impetus. We've actually got back-to-back home games now. So we've got yourselves and we've got Norwich on Tuesday night to come too. So I said to some of the guys I was with on Tuesday night on another podcast that if we can win at least one of those home games, I think we have to consider that a pretty good week from our point of view.
Finally, from your well, this is quite a bit of a different question, but talk to me about
Okay.
Regan Poole, because um, I really liked him at Lincoln. I have to be honest. And I think there was a point where we were close to signing him on a free transfer. I think
Oh,
it might
cool.
have been the same summer you actually signed him. Talk to me about him, because he looks like someone who, in my humble opinion, could have easily made the step up to the Championship last season. But
Yep.
unfortunately, he's got that ACL injury. So talk to me about him and how he's kind of fitted to this Pompey backline since he's come in, really.
Yeah, so fantastic for the first half of our League One winning season last year. So signed him in the summer, as you say. Jake, who's a close friend of mine, he's a Lincoln fan and never stops going on about Lincoln. It's anything he ever talks about. He was furious that he'd come to us because he felt, as you just quite rightly said, that that step up to the Championship could have been made a season earlier from Regan's point of view. But I just basically tease him all the time and say, oh, he only needed to wait a year and then he was a Championship player. You're quite right on the ACL injury. So that was this time last year, really. So it's the back end of November, I believe, or maybe slightly earlier, maybe sort of mid-November time. Chesterfield away, first round of the FA Cup, and we lost. And Regan Poole went down, bit of an innocuous one, whereby he's sort of chasing back to his own goal. I don't I couldn't quite describe to you exactly how he's done it, but he did his ACL in that moment. we saw him then re-emerge from the tunnel a little while later with some sort of ice around his knee, thinking, oh, okay, maybe it's just a bit of a knock. And then we realised he's going to be out for 9 months. Actually ended up being slightly more than that. His first game back was the 21st of September away at Burnley. And he was my man of the match that day, had the absolute game of his life. And I thought, right, great, Regan Paul's back, fantastic. Form has dipped a little bit since then. You might have watched the goal we conceded away at Plymouth. Is it's pretty much it's an error from him, and he's admitted to that in interviews he's done subsequently. You may have also seen the goal we conceded against Preston, which it basically flies right in front of him. It's a really nice ball in, but it's sort of one that he really ought to deal with and doesn't. So there've been a couple of occasions whereby Regan's been not at direct fault, 'cause it's never only one person's fault for conceding a goal, is what I've always thought anyway. But he's involved in the reason why goals have gone in. And obviously, as a defender, your bread and butter is to keep goals from going in the back of your own net alongside your goalkeeper and the rest of the back line. He's kind of admitted himself in an interview he did with Andy Moon at the BBC recently that first game he was probably playing on a little bit of adrenaline coming back in at Burnley, whereby your first game after a long-term injury, you're not really yourself and you're just sort of playing on fumes a little bit. Really riled up, ready to go, get him thrown in. He was in the starting 11. He had a great game. As I said just there, his form's dipped slightly. I think the previous international break that we've just had a couple of weeks ago came at a good time for him, allowed him to have a little bit of a break and a reset. He's an absolute stalwart of that starting 11. He's great. We love him to bits. I want to see more of the League One Regan Paul that we saw at the start of the League One season when we won it. I want to see more of the sort of performance level that I saw against Burnley away from him. I'm sure there's a very good chance that he returns to that because he's a top player. And I think you're right to identify him as one of Pompey's assets because he absolutely is. Just to return to the previous performance levels from Regan, and I think we'll be rocking and rolling.
Right. Final question from me, and then we'll move on to score predictions. What have you
Yep.
made of us so far this season?
I have a little bit of a unique insight into Bristol City. One of my dad's close friends is a big Bristol City fan, and Pepe, a friend of mine who I do a podcast with, was reporting for Bristol City Live not too long ago. So has travelled a couple of times with you guys. He was actually working there in a period whereby I think one of his first games was Blackburn away, and you hadn't quite, yeah, I know, you hadn't quite got into it. You weren't quite rocking and rolling. Since then, I think that you're celebrating your own 4-0 written all over it win last weekend against a really, really turgid Plymouth side. Let's not be, they are terrible. I know they beat us. It was the most undeserved victory you'll ever see in the Championship this season, I would have thought. I think Plymouth fans will probably, not all of them will admit to it because I don't think they will, but I think a lot of them would. And you look at their form since that win against us, and it doesn't make for great reading. So I don't think that they haven't won since, drawn 2, lost 2. But to come back to you guys, I think, back-to-back defeats. Okay, Burnley, a very good side. We lost to them. Watford have basically surprised everyone, really, haven't they, in terms of how well Tom Cleverley's done so far this season. And I think, no shame in, there's always shame in losing because you never want to lose a game of football, do you? But that 2-1 defeat at your place to Sheffield United against the league leaders and the team that are looking likely at this early stage to be back in the Premier League next year is, absolutely no issues whatsoever.
The manner of which that happened as well was just gut-wrenching. The 86th minute they scored,
I
went down
know.
to 10 men, then 98th minute. Yeah, sorry.
No, absolutely right. And I remember, was it a midweek game? I think.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was. Yeah,
I remember watching the Harrison Burrows. Was it Harrison Burrows?
don't really want to rock. Yeah, it was Harrison Burrows,
It
but
was
yeah,
Harrison.
yeah,
Sorry, that's not me trying to drag up bad memories, Annie. Sorry. But yeah, no, I remember it's right in front of the away end, wasn't it? It was dying embers. You're
yeah.
right. Um, and yeah, and when you're that close to it, you're right. It's a gut wrencher. Um, Yeah, I think you look at the quality all over the pitch. I think Anis Mehmeti and Scott Twine are 2 easy picks to take out of that. Um, we know, well, we don't know what he's like these days, really, but we know a little bit about Cameron Pring from his Pompey days. Obviously, he was with us for
Yeah.
quite a substantial period of time. Wasn't a particularly long period of time. It was a noticeable amount of time. I really liked him as a player. Rob Dickey's obviously a veteran at this level by now. I think he's fantastic. So yeah, and I really like Liam Manning as well. I obviously one of my closest mates is an Oxford fan and wasn't particularly happy when he left. And you could argue maybe it was a good, turned out to be not too bad because they ended up winning promotion. But in terms of the manner in which that all came about and the fact it was to you guys only just down the M4, there's the sort of, I know those games between Bristol City and Oxford moving forward will always have that little bit of a Manning tinge to them, won't they? Obviously, he's been dealing with some really personal, tragic circumstances recently and has done fantastically well to continue to manage your side. I know it took a little bit of time out, and some of the sort of the way in which that has been dealt with by your club, I think, has been really admirable as well. And I think, Middlesbrough was an example of that. There was a really lovely display that I saw at Ashton Gate for one of the first home games back as well. So it's a season with an emotional tinge to it, both on and off the pitch for you guys. And I think he's an exceptional coach. I think he's a really good manager, or head coach, as it were. And as I said to you,
Yeah.
basically at the top of this, Annie, I would not be surprised if you're looking more to, and you want to be looking more towards those playoffs than you do a mid-table, whatever it is, 10th, 11th, 12th place finish in your 10th consecutive championship season. So that is a Bristol City review from an outsider. I hope that's somewhere of kind of what you wanted to hear. But yeah, very good side. And as I say, if we're on the right side of the result on Saturday, I think it would be absolutely brilliant from our point of view. A point's not enough. A win would be fantastic. But I wouldn't be surprised if you came down and took all 3 points. And that leads you nicely on to your score prediction.
Score predictions. Yeah, it would be first of all, it'd be great if we go down there and get 3 points. As you mentioned, I think somewhere in the middle of it, going away from home in the championship is incredibly difficult. We've got a couple of decent away results, Preston and Middlesbrough this season, and played quite Norwich away as well. We've played quite well in a lot of the away games. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how Bristol City set up. You'd expect, I'm sure, from your time with Jack, you'd expect Liam Manning to be, a possession-based manager, a side who'd want to build that from the back and all those kind of cliches and whatnot. But I think this season away from home, we've been a little bit more adaptable and flexible, I think, in our setup. So maybe you might see a little bit of a different Bristol City come to Fratton Park. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, leads us nicely on to score predictions. Tom, do you want to start and then I'll give mine?
I'll go for. I can't come on here and not predict a Pompey win because that
It's fair.
wouldn't be representing the club very well, would it? So I'll go with a 2-1 Pompey win. I think Anis Mehmeti will get his 7th for the season, and Colby Bishop with a brace. There you go. What are you
Exactly.
thinking, mate?
You can't come on here and not predict a Pompey win. That's
Of
absolutely
course I
it's
can't.
it's it's, it's tradition. I think it's
Of
like
course it is.
anyone who comes on has got to predict a win for their team. I'm going to go for a narrow one. I think you mentioned it was going to be. It's either we'll somewhat maybe control the game and maybe get away with it, or it'll be quite tight. I'll go for a tight 1-0. I think we're quite good defensively. McNally, Dickey, you mentioned Zach Vinus. Over the last couple of years, been a really top championship centre back. So I'll go for them to impress in what should hopefully be a great away day. Tom, thank you so much for coming
You're
on.
welcome.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully everyone watching this has enjoyed Tom's company as well. Tom, where can we find you on YouTube, and let everyone on the Bristol City section guide you over to lure them over to your channel.
Yeah, if you search for Fauna written all over it pretty much anywhere, I'm sure we'll come up. Pompey home and away for nearly 10 years now. Crikey. Yeah, I've been doing it for quite a while. Just ticked over to 18,000 subscribers on there as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, if you want to come and see us, we probably won't be very happy in the video that involves your team. So come and see us for that narrow 1-0 win that Annie's predicting. Yeah, if appreciate the opportunity to plug, mate, and it's been a real pleasure to spend some time with you.
No worries. It's been an absolute pleasure having Tom on. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. As I accidentally hit the mic. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, like, subscribe, all of those. You know what you're doing. Good stuff on YouTube. And yeah, I will catch you for what will hopefully be a positive match review, which has not happened in a while actually. So let's hope for a positive match review after Bristol City's trip to Fran. Thank you very much for watching. Keep safe, and we'll catch you later. Cheers.